you all for joining me on a new episode of Brain Food. This is our Black History Month special. Personally, I feel like Black History Month is from January 1st to December 31st. The enemy obviously gave us 1 month to study our history and gave us all 12 of the months to study their history. What I'm going to be doing is starting out with the influencers and the leaders in the Black community. The people may not have taught you too much about, but we're going to touch on their achievements and their purpose in entering the Black community to try to make a change. The first person that we're going to be touching on is one of my favorites, Marcus Mosiah Garvey. He was born in 1887 in St. Anne's Bay, Jamaica. In 1910, he led the movement we now know as Pan-Africanism, and he taught what we now know as Garveyism. He presented a military fashion and was the first to teach separation from the oppressor in hopes that we may return to the motherland to take advantage of the resources there. He influenced us to have a better life by doing things for ourselves and had a newspaper called Negro World that was distributed in multiple countries around the world. And this is one of the fathers of do for self. I'm going to read 2 quotes from Marcus Garvey. A people without knowledge of their past, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots. What is a tree without roots? A tree without roots is absolutely dead. So if you don't have that knowledge of going back to see where you came from, you'll never see where you're going. And that just describes that we are dead mentally people. The second quote, great principles, great ideas, know no nationality. So all the arguing that we do about what to call ourselves and where we come from, that can all be solved with good principles, good standards, and good characteristic traits. The next person that we're going to be touching on is the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Born in 1897 in Sandusville, Georgia, and at the age of 23 he moved to Detroit with his family, and in 1934 he started teaching Islam and made the biggest impact in Black consciousness with his book, Message to the Black Man in America. Published in 1965, he ran a military-style organization and revealed hidden meaning behind scripture and Bible and the Holy Quran. He taught and exercised optimum health, various forms of biology, astronomy, geography, and cooperative economics through his economic blueprint. He had a Muhammad Speaks newspaper, a food program including farms, schools, boats, planes, and trucks for resources for businesses and restaurants. He taught on 76 trillion years of history, the reality of God and the devil, and he produced some of the greatest men that we know today. For example, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, Brother Malcolm X, Brother Muhammad Ali, Khalid Muhammad, Clarence 13X, and a lot more to come on that line of things. I can't name all of them right now, unfortunately. 2 quotes by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. The Negro wants to be everything but himself. He wants to integrate with the white man, but he cannot integrate with himself or with his own kind. The Negro wants to lose his identity because he does not know his own identity. Second quote. The slave master is no longer hindering us. We're hindering ourselves. So it's time for us to take responsibility for the things that we do and the things that we don't do. One thing that we do a lot of is arguing and going back and forth, but we don't come together to come up with a progressive plan for our community. The next person that we're going to be touching on is Minister Louis Farrakhan. Born in 1933 in Bronx, New York, he grew to be a talented calypso singer, dancer, and violinist. He joined the Nation of Islam in 1955. He had an example of great leadership in Brother Malcolm X. Minister Farrakhan has been teaching and fighting for freedom, justice, and equality, working on the unity of Black people in America and the people of Earth. He is the national representative of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and current standing leader of the Nation of Islam. In 1979, he created the Final Call newspaper, which was once known as Muhammad Speaks, by the creation of Elijah Muhammad. He called for 1 million Black men to take responsibilities for their families and their communities in 1995, where 2 million came to unify on a common goal, now known as the Million Man March. He's now given 60 plus years of his service toward the mental resurrection of the people of Earth and ending the violence and self-hatred within the Black community. Here are 2 quotes from Minister Louis Farrakhan. Black leadership has to recognize that principles more than speech, character more than claim, is greater in advancing the cause of our liberation than what has transpired thus far. Second quote, our success depends on us, our unity, and our willingness to submit to the will of God. The next person who we will be touching on is Brother Huey P Newton, born in 1942 in Monroe, Louisiana, leader and founder of the Black Panther Party, along with Bobby Seale or Sealy, not exactly sure. They formed a military fashion brotherhood and sisterhood. He stood on the protection of black people from an oppressor that has shown us so much violence in the past. He's an example of positive outcome when you bring masculinity to black men in their own communities. In 1969, he and the Black Panthers created a food program to give breakfast to children, and in a few weeks, they went from feeding a handful of children to feeding hundreds and eventually thousands of children. That went on to be called the WYC, Women, Infant, and Children Program. So shout out to the Black Panthers and Brother Huey P. Newton. Here are two quotes by Brother Huey P. Newton. My fear was not of death itself, but death without meaning. Second quote, Black power is giving power to people who have not had power to determine their own destiny. The next person that we're going to be touching on is W.E.B. Du Bois. Born in 1868, since 1986, he began his journey as a civil rights pioneer who studied the psychological effects of the descendants of black slaves in America in hopes to advance the mindsets of black people in a capitalist-ruled society. W.E.B. Du Bois pointed out the degrading role of blacks in America and formed case studies to help fix the problem. He went on to become nationally known for his writings, and eventually he went on to create the organization that we now know as the NAACP, and that was in 1909. Two quotes from W.E.B. Du Bois. The first quote, but what of black women? I most certainly doubt if any other race of women could have brought its finest up through such devilish a fire. Second quote, a system of education is not one thing, nor does it have a single definite object, nor is it a mere matter of schools. Education is that whole system of human training within and without the school walls, which molds and develops men. The next person that we're going to be touching on is Harriet Tubman. This brave warrior woman was born in 1819 in Dorchester County, Maryland as a slave. She escaped slavery in 1849 and started the construction of the Underground Railroad route, freeing her first slave in 1850. She made 11 trips from Maryland to Canada within 5 years. She even went to free her own father in 1857. From her recollection, she helped to free an estimate of 1,000 slaves from physical bondage. I think that's something that definitely needs to be pointed out and celebrated. Here are two quotes from Sister Harriet Tubman. I freed 1,000 slaves. I could have freed 1,000 more if only they knew they were slaves. Now that's very deep, because when you come with the truth in this type of world and you try to present it to an ignorant people, they don't know that they're in that state or the qualities that put them in that state. So when you expose that, it's easier to free them from that bondage. Second quote from Harriet Tubman, there's one of two things I had the right to, liberty or death. If I could not have one, I would take the other, for no man should take me alive. I should fight for liberty as long as my strength lasted. Now that's a warrior woman right there. The next person that we're going to be touching on goes by the name of Mansa Musa. Born around 1280, he was a Muslim ruler of the Mali Empire from 1312 to 1337. He was the wealthiest man, leaving behind the legacy of Timbuktu, the University of Higher Knowledge that was famous for its wealth and superior learning environment. The next person that we're going to be touching on is Shaka Zulu. Shaka Zulu was an African warrior born 1787, ruler of the Zulu nation from 1816 to 1828. He fought off the South African British invasion and was known for his intelligent battle strategies, and his nation was signified for masculinity within the black family structure. Here are two quotes from Shaka Zulu. I need no bodyguard at all, for even the bravest men who approach me get weak at their knees and their hearts turn to water, whilst their heads become giddy and incapable of thinking as the sweat of fear paralyzes them. Second quote, we are going to wreak havoc on our opponent's psyche and their plan of attack. So this was a man that was about mental battle strategy and a physical battle strategy. The next person that we're going to talk about is Queen Nzinga. Queen Nzinga was born Anna Nzinga in 1581. In 1626, Nzinga became Queen of Ndongo when her brother committed suicide while facing the rising Portuguese demands for a slave trade. Queen Nzinga refused to allow them to take control of her nation. Nzinga defeated a Portuguese army in 1647. Nzinga took over as ruler of the nearby kingdom Matamba, capturing Queen Umwango Matamba and routing her army. Known for being a diplomat and visionary military leader, she resisted the Portuguese invasion and slave raids for 30 years. A skilled negotiator, she allied her forces with the Dutch and pitted them against the Portuguese in an effort to stop their efforts of domination. She fought for a free Angola until her death, but left a thriving economy for trade in the kingdom of Matamba. This next black influencer goes by the name Noble Drew Ali. Born 1886, brought Islam to black America and connected black people to their Asiatic Moorish roots and nationality, influencing a separate way of living from the Caucasian ruled society through his establishing of the Moorish Science Temple of America in 1913 in Newark, New Jersey. He then moved to Chicago to continue his work and spread his teachings nationally. Here are two quotes by the Honorable Noble Drew Ali. "I'm going to stop the European from thinking and start you to thinking for your own good." A lot of us have black skin, but we have Caucasian minds. We don't appreciate what we can do for ourselves, and since we don't see the appreciation of ourselves, we can't give appreciation to the people who look just like us. Second quote by the Honorable Noble Drew Ali. "I brought you everything it takes to save a nation. Take it and save yourself." The next person that we will be discussing is Angela Davis. Born 1944 in Birmingham, Alabama, she lived in an area nicknamed Dynamite Hill for the number of homes targeted by the Ku Klux Klan. In the late 1860s, she joined the black organization, Black Panther Party, and was prolific in influencing black power and unity. In the late 1960s, she joined the Black Panther Party and was prolific in influencing black power and unity. She helped in the fight for improving the conditions of inmates and remained fearless through her battles with governmental organizations and law enforcement. Even Ronald Reagan attempted to stop her influence and ultimately failed. Here are two quotes by Angela Davis. "Jails and prisons are designed to break human beings, to convert the population into specimens in a zoo, obedient to our keepers, but dangerous to one another." Second quote. "As a black woman, my politics and political affiliation are bound up with and flow from participation in my people's struggle for liberation, and with the fight of oppressed people all over the world against American imperialism." Go ahead, sister. The next person that we'll be touching on is Sister Madam C.J. Walker. Born Sarah Breedlove in 1867 in Delta, Louisiana, as a child of slaves, she was orphaned at the age of 7. She married at 14 and unfortunately became a widow with an infant daughter at the age of 20. After she moved to St. Louis with her brother, she began the idea of creating hair products for black women under the company name Madam C.J. Walker. She toured the country making demonstrations of her products. Soon she became the first American woman to become a self-made millionaire. She died in 1919, leaving her fortune to black charities. Here are two quotes from Sister Madam C.J. Walker, Sister Sarah Breedlove. "I had to make my own living and my own opportunity, but I made it. Don't sit down and wait for the opportunities to come. Get up and make them." Second quote. "I am not satisfied in making money for myself. I endeavor to provide employment for hundreds of women of my race." And that wraps up the influencers and the leaders that I feel that we don't touch on a lot, and that our people could really learn from what they've done, and the success that these people have had can make a good impact and a good example for our community.